Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to Inappropriate Radio. It's your host, Shauna. Let's get into this. So, hi guys. Remember we were having the discussion where I wanted to basically start the conversation or the quest and pretty much just challenge people to learn more about the Creator. This was for atheists to learn about God through religion, nature, and just the overall environment, including people. And for people who practice or who subscribe, I would say, to one religion, to learn something about an opposing religion, right? I stated that I would learn about Buddhism, but I wanted to just have this really quick conversation because obviously when you start paying attention to different religions, race is going to come up, right? Race is going to be a major factor in majority of the conversations that we have, pretty much in regards to spiritual warfare. The history of the world, not just America, has shown us, how they feel about Black people time and time again. And not just Black American people. You even have Africans who are banned from African countries. Like, that doesn't even make sense, you see? So, I wanted to have this conversation to open up our perspectives and shift our perspectives and pretty much open the door to educating ourselves on a few things. As a Black American person who has Haitian roots, right? I would like to pretty much just start out by saying the competition is an illusion. Black women have the genetic ability to produce babies of all kinds. We have the genetic variation to produce any type of baby. White women can't do that. Hispanic women can't do that. Indian women can't do that. Asian women cannot do that. Okay? It's us. We are the source of life. So as you do your research and you go through these conversations and you are continuously reminded of how Black people have been treated throughout history, I want you to remember that back then and even today, there's no different as far as the hate that people have for Black people. But I also want you to remember, as a Black person, American or not, that you have the genetic sequence in your very body, right, to sustain life over centuries. So there is no competition, right? Competitions happen between people that are in the same class, the same category. We are distinctly different from women of other cultures, right? Of other races. So I think it's really important for us to be mindful of that. Of course, people, and I'm gonna say, like, recent history. When you go back to recent history, Christianity was used along with the Bible to tell people, mainly Africans, Black people, that slavery in their bondage is justified by that great book. Even Islam had, or people, right? Because I'm not going to say the whole religion. People who practice Islam a few centuries ago too used Islam to, distort the community and togetherness that African people had. And this is where the African war even comes from, because the Moors were Muslims because the Muslims came and gave them the ultimatum to either stay where they were and be killed or to become Muslim, right? So, and a part of me wants to be like upset with my ancestors too, because it's like, I know we're not that weak of a people, right? So it's just a lot of different factors, and it's gonna ignite a disdain for a different set of people. And even when you go over to the Catholics, they are the Gentiles in every book, in the Bible, in the Quran. These are the Spaniards and the Romans. And I like to always remind people that it wasn't the Asians and the Russians that came and captured people. It was the Spaniards, because the Roman people, they're Spanish as well, right? As far as genetics are concerned. So, and when we're speaking of genetics, we have to always be mindful of what that's connected to. It's connected to a longer, more broad chain, which consists of people who may or may not look like us, right? But once that thing transfers and manifests down into this 3D, we're quickly reminded of the history and what we've been fighting all along. And I'm sorry for anyone who's offended, because yes, we know at least 90% of the slaves who were taken from Africa didn't come to America. They were dropped off in the Caribbean and in South America, and only about 4 to 9% of those slaves were actually brought here to America. Black people were already here along with the natives, right? You don't have to try me on that. You can do your own research. There's a lot of books out there and a lot of information about the actual numbers and how they were manipulated along with all these books. So and this is why I wanted to go into the conversation about the oldest Bible, the oldest religion, because everything has an origin, right? And when you start doing research and really paying attention to where these things come from, everything is kind of just pointing back to a time period where a particular group of people had been overthrown, right? In one way or another. So, and this is not a dig at any other race. This is just me simply having the conversation on warfare. Do you think those people who were brutally murdered and displaced from their homes are resting? And this is why, I'm urging people who have altars to put the altars up, because those spirits that we've been calling in are coming. We don't have to call them back to this room anymore. The portals have been open for new souls to come in, and for recycled souls to be reborn again. This is the time for that, for people to get their direct justice, to enhance the lineage, to cancel out any karma. So this is not just for us to reap the reward. This is also for people who have, pushed us into submission. They have to reap their karma also. So when you see, we had this conversation, when we see really large institutions falling, when you see people like Queen Elizabeth finally dying. I mean, I hate to use the word finally, but she lived a really long time. And this is someone who perpetuates the idea that Black people are lower class citizens than everyone, after they stole our entire culture, right? So when we start seeing things like that happen, it's just letting you know it's time for new things to start occurring, and we have to prepare ourselves for the spiritual warfare that's going to come with that, because not everyone is going to be easily open to us being upgraded as a whole. Not everyone is going to be okay with being in the same class, if you will, as someone who they thought to be beneath them, especially when they've been taught this and it's been going on for ages, right? The coin has been flipped and we're on a different side, as far as, social norms are concerned, things are going to be changing. And even black people too, we have to get used to seeing ourselves in higher positions. We have to get, and I mean, of course this is if you are a black American, because they still have, certain classes over in Africa, different parts of the world where we are mainly the only ones who don't get to see black people, act in a manner in which we always have. So, before I go, I just want to pose this question. Do you think it's possible for us as a race to be able to come together without the help of other races? There's a lot of different conversations going on, and I'm gonna stay out of it for now. I just think we have to learn how to start having that respect for ourselves and one another, and just really be mindful of what it is we really do come from. We really do come from royalty, so we have to stop acting like or carrying ourselves in a way that is not honorable or respectable. I'm not talking about, small common things. I'm speaking about how we deal with one another, the things that we put out, how we represent ourselves and each other, how are we raising our children, what are we instilling, like those kinds of things. I'm not really talking about how you dress and how you wear your hair. I mean, that is also a piece of it, and it's definitely connected to how we perceive ourselves, and how we decide to walk through the world has a lot to do with how we feel about ourselves. If you're a black woman who feels like you need to dye your hair blonde and put in, contacts and get Brazilian butt lifts and have weaves all the way down to your ankles, like, you might need to look at yourself and find out why you deem that necessary. If you feel like you need to straighten your hair because it's not acceptable in the environment you're going into, you need to look at yourself and the environment that you're going into. Anything that is an extension of who you are needs to still directly come from your genetics. And if it doesn't, you have to question what's going on. What am I doing here? That is a sign of self-hate, right? People who don't look like you should not be able to be rich off of you, when people who look like you are not rich themselves. We spend too much money on people who invest in, not liking us, who make sure that if we want to get ahead, it's going to be really hard. So just take this with you. Be mindful that can't compete where you don't compare. I'm not trying to be funny, but we have a different set of circumstances. We're totally different when it comes to genetics. We're much more advanced as a people, as a whole, and we have a plight that everyone is contributing to, but no one tends to really understand because it's not them undergoing the madness. So just keep that in mind when you deal with people. Understand that there is a spiritual side to them hating you that they don't have control over. Like, make sure you remind yourself constantly that people hating you didn't start with them. It's just what they were taught, and you really can't control that. And you shouldn't want to. You shouldn't even be upset, because this is history. I would be mad if someone can make a baby that looks like me and they don't look like me. Alright, so just try to be positive out there, y'all. I love y'all, and I'm not racist. I may be stereotypical. I may fall into stereotyping of people, but I don't hate anyone because of their race, and I don't actively work on doing anything to put anyone down because of their race. Okay? I love y'all. Hope y'all had a good day. I hope y'all are eating y'all fruit and eating y'all vegetables, drinking y'all water, minding y'all business, and sipping y'all tea because it's free. Love y'all. Peace.